Hello and welcome to my channel Excel for Newbies. I am Professor Avesh Bhurnia. In the last video we discussed the power of data visualization, and in this video we are going to look at column charts in Excel. If you wish to follow along, please download the file in the link given below. In today's video I will introduce you to column charts in Excel. But before we create our first column chart, let me take you through the various types of charts and their subtypes with their applications that we will be discussing in this entire series of data visualization videos. So to begin with, we have the column chart. So in column A I have put in the type of chart, column B has the subtype, and column C is why or what is the ideal purpose of using these charts. So just let me insert a column so this becomes easier for you to go through it. Well, so now we have the column chart. The first is the column chart. A column chart has got three subtypes. Similarly, a bar chart also has the similar three subtypes. So column charts and bar charts have got three subtypes each. So they are clustered, stacked, and 100% stacked. Now clustered column charts and clustered bar charts are similar in terms of the nature. The only difference is clustered column charts are used when you have few items, whereas bar charts are used when you have many items for comparison. So ideally, column charts and bar charts are used for comparisons. Stacked column charts and stacked bar charts are used to compare relative and absolute differences. Now when you say relative is when you convert your values into percentage and then you compare them. Whereas absolute is when you compare them directly against their values. So we will be actually looking at what absolute and relative differences mean when we create our charts. Now 100% stacked column and 100% stacked bar charts are used when you are comparing only relative differences. So in this case, you are not looking at the values, you are looking only at the percentages, and they are always stacked 100%. Next is, we are going to be discussing pie charts. So again, we are going to be discussing three types of pie charts. One is the pie chart, the plain pie chart, which talks only about the simple share of a total, as well as then we are going to be looking at the pie of pie charts, and we are going to be looking at a bar of pie charts. Both of these charts are very similar in the way they are created. The only difference is that here you are going to be creating a pie of smaller shares, and in a bar of pie chart you will be creating a bar diagram or a bar chart out of the smaller shares. So these are ideal when you are working with shares which are very small when compared to others in that entire group of data points or observations. Next, we are going to be looking at four different types of line charts. One is a plain line chart. Then we are going to be looking at line charts with markers. Then we will look at stacked line charts. We will look at 100% stacked line charts. Now, a plain line chart would be ideal when you are comparing non-cyclical data over many periods. A stacked line chart is used to compare many categories of data over fewer periods. Similarly, the same applies for 100% stacked line charts. And line with markers are comparison of time series data where you have lesser data points. In addition to these four types of charts, which are the basic types of charts, I will be discussing three more charts, which are area charts, scatter charts, and bubble charts. So area charts, again, the three subtypes we will be discussing in this video series will be a normal area chart where you are talking about composition of data across time for many periods. Stacked area charts are used for a composition of data across time for many periods of relative and absolute differences. And the 100% stacked area charts will be used for composition of data across time for many periods of only relative differences. So the stacked charts are always used in stacked and 100% stacked. So it's the same. Stacked charts will be used for relative and absolute differences, whereas 100% stacked charts will be used only for relative differences. Now, these are certain terminologies or terms which you may have heard for the first time, But don't worry, I will be clarifying and giving you a clear picture of all these terms when we actually create the graphs and the charts. Scatter charts are used when you are trying to compare the relationship between two variables. Say for example, you want to compare the relationship between advertising and sales. Now these two variables are variables wherein one variable is going to be dependent on the other variable. So just in case you talk about sales versus advertising, the sales is dependent on advertising. Similarly, you could also take an example of your personal, personal examples. Like for example, the car that you use is dependent, or the cost of the car that you use will be dependent on the salary that you make. So these are certain examples when you talk about scatter charts. Next is you can use a bubble chart. Now a bubble chart is a relationship between three variables. It is very similar to a scatter chart. The only difference is the size of the bubble is used to depict the magnitude of the third variable that you are actually using. Now when we come to the bubble chart, I will discuss the bubble chart in detail, but these are the various types of charts that I hope to cover in this entire data visualization series. Now quickly, let's jump into creating a column chart. So I have uploaded this file which will be used for the entire data visualization series, and I will keep updating the file. So you will keep getting a newer version. So try and download the latest version whenever you are working with your data. So let's jump into the column chart. Let me click this column data set or this column sheet, the sheet named column. Now you will notice I have used the similar data set that I used for the video where I discussed the power of visualization. So I have got genre. The only difference here is instead of putting months, I have put the years. So it's a hypothetical data set. Let's now try and analyze the data. So I have created the three types of the three subtypes of the column charts. What I want you to do along with me is you should try and create these charts for yourself when you are actually practicing. Now the reasons why I'm uploading all the files along with the videos is so that you can continuously practice what I am teaching or I am giving you in terms of inputs for the videos. Now you will notice that I'm using the same file. The name of the file is the same that I used in the previous video. Just the only difference is it is a little updated with the data. So I will try and make sure that whenever I upload the file, I upload it with the date. So the date which is the latest you can download. Well, now let's try and understand what a clustered column chart actually does. So as I told you, a clustered column chart is used to compare magnitudes. Now you will notice that in this clustered column chart that is created, it is depicting the genre of data in the legends, and it is depicting the years in the legends. It's depicting the years in the legends, and in the x-axis it is taking up the genre, whereas in the y-axis it has put the revenue. So since the revenue is put up on the y-axis, you will be able to see and compare each of the revenues for the genres separately. Now in the clustered column chart, all the values for a particular category will be clustered together. Like lifestyle, all the years for lifestyle will be clustered together. Business, all the years will be clustered together. You can before I move to the other charts, I'm going to teach you a few techniques of managing charts. So for example, there is the title. I have given the title clustered column chart. You can click this particular box and you can change the title depending on what you want. You can say sales by year or sales by genre. You can also make changes to the axis that you have created. So this is the vertical axis. You can make changes to it. So here I would not want to see the entire values. I may want to see it in thousands or in maybe 10,000s. So I can make changes to it. Now how do I make changes to it is I right click the axis and I click format axis. Now the moment I click format axis, a format axis pane opens up to the right of my screen. Now in this particular screen, you can make changes to the minimum and maximum that you wish to. This is automated. Then the units are dependent on how your data is being split or how your axis is being split. So there's a difference of $20,000 or a step of $20,000 every time you have a new value. Then there is a minor line. Now in this case, if you wish to change the units, you have the display units that are available. So you can change these display units to maybe 10,000s. So if I change it to 10,000, I have this value which automatically changes to 10,000. Now this is displayed as 10,000. Now I can remove or uncheck this to remove show display units label on chart. When I do that, because I know my data clearly shows that the data is in 10,000s. And if I wish to even make a change to this particular values, so I can make changes to the minimum and maximum that I have. There are other aspects as well that I can make changes to. I have labels, label position, then the number format. Now it is picked up an accounting number format, which is okay. I can leave it as it is, or else if I wish to change it, I can change it to a currency format. Now if you notice, when I changed it to currency format, that dash has been taken care of. It is now represented as just 0. So you can change it to maybe a rupee or whatever you wish to work with. So since these are dollar amounts, I'm leaving it as it is. Now I can close this. If you do not want to make changes to the number format, you can leave it as linked to the source, but I have changed it and I'm going to close this particular format access pane. Now I have set this chart. So these are certain techniques that you can use. Now say for example, if I wish to see my genres as legends and I want to see the year in the x-axis. So there is an option to quickly swap it. Under the chart tools, I click the design tab, and under the design tab I have under the data command group, I have switch row and column. So the moment I click it, it will swap the row and the column, which will now take the legends as the genres, and the x-axis values will now be replaced by the years. I can swap it back if I do not like the look of it. So I'm back to the way I have wanted it. Now we'll quickly move to the stacked column chart. Now I'm not going to do the formatting for this. You can do it for yourself. The stacked column chart again is used to compare the values. But I do not seriously feel that there is a very, very great use of a stacked column chart, because here it may be okay, easy to compare the values, but if the size of the total column is not very, very long or very, very tall, it becomes difficult to analyze the differences. But here, relatively in a clustered column chart, it becomes relatively easier to analyze the differences. So here it becomes difficult, but nonetheless, this is a stacked column chart. Now in the last video, I taught you how to create a clustered column chart. The only difference in creating a stacked column chart is when you select your data and you click the insert tab, you have the option to create the column charts. That is where you have the option of creating a stacked column chart. I'm not going to be inserting this. Similarly, you have the 100% stacked column chart. I'm not going to be looking into that. But yes, I have already created the 3 charts for you. Now a stacked column chart is comparing only the absolute values and they are relative to each other. So you are going to be comparing it relatively as well as the absolute values. So that's what I meant when I said in the start of the video that you are going to be looking at relative values as well as absolute values. Now look at the third chart, which is a 100% stacked column chart. Now you will notice the difference between a stacked column chart and a 100% stacked column chart is the stacked column chart has got the heights of the columns which are different. But in this case, all the columns will have a similar height, because here you are comparing only relative values. So if I go to analyze the total revenue for a particular genre, then it will be difficult to analyze it in using a 100% stacked column chart. But yes, when I look at this, I know that okay, education magazines are the highest in terms of the total values when compared to the other genres. But in this case, it will be easier for you to compare within a particular genre. Within a genre, it's easier for you, like you can clearly make out that for lifestyle 2014 was the best year. Similarly, for education, again 2014 was a good year. So you will notice that relatively 2014 has been a good year for all the genres of magazines. And you will also be able to see that particularly 2013 education magazines did not do very well. So these are certain insights that you can actually draw from just one single graph. I have created this graph, and there are so many things that you can draw in terms of insights from these three graphs. So I have tried to give you a clear and practical application of all these three charts and all these three graphs. I hope you make use of it and try to implement it in your daily reports and in your daily requirements or in your projects, because I am trying to reach out to as many students and employees and the people who are working on Excel sheets, because throughout my sort of career and throughout my works, I have realized that working with Excel has been a challenge for many of the people. And the kind of people I have trained or I have worked with have always complained about the fact that they have been unable to understand what is the best visual for the data that they have. So in these entire set of data visualization videos, I hope to clarify most of your doubts. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please patronize my channel, please patronize my content that I am sharing. Please subscribe to my channel and do not be a newbie to Excel.